Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about, can I sell my rental property with tenants in it? Can I sell my rental property with tenants in it? And the answer to that question is yes, absolutely. We sell properties all the time that are tenant occupied. So when you're doing a tenant occupied property for sale, you have a couple different options. You can sell it off market to another investor that may already have some rentals, maybe they don't, doesn't really matter. But off market to other investors is a great option. Another way to do it is to list it on the MLS and just make sure that if you hire an agent or if you are the agent that you disclose that the property is rented and that it's best to be sold to, an investor and not to disturb the tenants and to set up an appointment, and then you're gonna have to coordinate with the property manager or the tenant to show that buyer the property. Not a big deal, just an extra step or two. The other option is you can use online marketplaces like Roofstock. Roofstock.com is a great resource to sell tenant-occupied properties. In fact, that's what that marketplace does best, is sell properties turnkey or tenant-occupied. So if you have a property that is occupied by a tenant, don't worry, you can still sell that property. You just need to make sure that you let everybody know that it's not a vacant property and that the buyer most likely can't move in right away. Just disclose that there is a tenant there and it's already occupied, and it would make a great investment property for the buyer, assuming that the tenant is paying their rent. So don't overthink it, keep it simple. Can you sell a rental property with tenants in it? And the answer is yes, absolutely. We've probably sold 75 to 100 properties with tenants in them over just the last 5 or 6 years alone. So don't worry, if you have a property with a tenant in it and you want to sell it, you can easily sell it. Find other investors. You can do so by going on Facebook, finding local real estate investor groups. You can go to local REIAs, or real estate investment associations, and find other investors there. Or you can just find an agent, or if you are an agent, list it. Just disclose that there's a tenant there. And then last but not least, go to roofstock.com to list tenant-occupied properties to other investors that are looking for tenant-occupied properties. There's probably a ton of other places to go to list your property. You can post it on Craigslist. You can post it on
You need to
Facebook,
list it either
on a
on
marketplace or on your
like the
local
Facebook
MLS,
groups
or you need to go
specifically,
post it.
because you can
That's how
target
you're going to drum up
landlords,
activity
investors,
and get
flippers,
interested
so on and
buyers
so
to
forth.
buy that property.
But any
End
social
of the
media
day,
platform
do not worry,
is
don't
also
fret.
gonna be a
If a
great
property
way to
that you
sell
own
a
is
tenant-occupied
occupied,
property.
you can
At the
still
end of the
sell
day,
it.
you need to
One thing
tell
I
people
would
that it's for
recommend
sale.
is be prepared when you're listing it or you're going to be selling that property, because the buyer, the investor, assuming they're okay with it being occupied, they're going to want a couple things from you. They're going to probably want a copy of the lease. They're going to probably want a copy of the application or any due diligence that you may have done when you were screening that tenant, if you pulled their credit or criminal background. They're typically going to want those things. And then they're also going to want to see a rent roll. And if you're unfamiliar, a rent roll is nothing more than a spreadsheet that just says when the tenant paid and how much. But by seeing a couple months back, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, showing, hey, the tenant's paying $885 every month, and you can see here on my spreadsheet, I've recorded every time they've paid me. And that's going to be helpful and beneficial information to the buyer, because if that tenant's 20 days late every month, well, that buyer may not want that tenant, or they may want to evict that tenant, or whatever the case is. But if you can show a rent roll that says, hey, the tenant pays on time, or in some cases, before the rent's even due, well, that's going to make that look like a better tenant for the investor, for the buyer that's potentially going to be buying that property. So have a lease, have a copy of the application, any due diligence that you may have done on the tenant for screening, as well as a rent roll. Those are going to typically be things that are going to be requested. So put that stuff together in the beginning before you go post or list the property, and it's going to make that process smooth and easy. When you go to the title company or your closing attorney, in the end, when you're actually selling, you got it listed or posted, you found a buyer, they know that it's rented and they're okay with it, they like it that it's rented because it's an asset, not a liability. You are going to need to credit back any deposit that you may have received in the beginning. That's going to need to be credited back, so know that in advance. And then also rents will be prorated. So if you are selling the property on the 20th day of the month, they're going to typically prorate 20 days worth of rent back to the seller. So you may have a little bit of cost that you're going to have to incur, but they're not necessarily costs. They're just, you're going to want to make sure that it's fair. If you collect a $2,000 security deposit from a tenant and you sell the property and you're no longer the landlord, you need to transfer that $2,000 security deposit to the new owner, because if that tenant moves out and the property didn't have any damage or didn't need anything major, somebody's going to need to return that $2,000 deposit in this scenario to the tenant. So just keep these little things in mind, but do not fret. If you have a property that's rented, yes, you can sell it. It's not difficult. Just be prepared and let people know. Don't keep that a secret. That's not going to make for a good transaction and a good sale. Let everybody know, hey, this is a rental property. This is an investment property. There's a tenant here. They've been here for this long. They've been paying this. Hopefully they're paying on time. Just disclose all of that information. Guys, I teach people how to buy rental properties, especially how to do it with little to no money using the BRRRR method. And if you want to learn more about the BRRRR method, about working personally and directly with me on how to buy and acquire, and maybe even sell properties, we do all of that. Check out BRRRRmethodmastery.com to learn more. Thanks for watching.